Welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire.
What does asbestos management mean to you?
I used to really struggle with the asbestos management at my site, but now it's a breeze.
It used to be really expensive. I was paying loads, but now I've got my asbestos power team in place. It's so much easier.
Asbestos can be a pain in the arse if not handled right.
We had to stop the job because asbestos was discovered. Now we don't have that problem.
Asbestos management is easier than you think. Asbestos management. Be proactive, not reactive. Think about asbestos first, not last.
And now your hosts, best-selling authors and asbestos experts, Ian Stone and Neil Munro.
Hi, welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire. I'm Ian Stone.
I'm Neil Munro.
So today we're talking about asbestos removal companies and surveying companies that are under one roof. What's the underlying worry with that?
Yeah, so it kind of comes down to a question of impartiality, doesn't it, really?
It does.
So just to sort of set the picture, now there's lots of different asbestos companies, isn't there? All set up in a different manner. And some companies will undertake asbestos removal and they'll have an asbestos surveying department or a separate company.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're talking about, isn't it?
It is. It's any company where you've got surveying and removal under the same roof.
Yes.
And for me personally, that is a real big underlying worry because, like you said at the beginning, impartiality is key. And for me, the question is, how can one truly be impartial and independent when you're running a company with both elements? Because a removal company make their money from removing asbestos.
Yeah, removing or making it safe or repairing, anything working on asbestos, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, and an asbestos surveying company makes money from doing asbestos surveys.
Yes.
So that's why they hold each other's hand, but they shouldn't be in the same bed as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think probably what's the issue with that? It's kind of like with an asbestos survey, the surveying company or the surveyor has to give the best recommendation, really, of what the client or the end user needs to do with that asbestos. And where you've got maybe directly or indirectly internal pressure or even external pressure, are you always going to give that best impartial, best for the client recommendation if you've got that sort of underlying in the background?
It's pressure and influence, isn't it?
And maybe the surveyor hasn't got that pressure, but maybe his manager is sort of like influencing, if he rings up to say, I've got this element I've got this asbestos, this damage. What do you think?
Yeah, what do you think I should do? Because I'm kind of borderline. I don't know whether it needs remediating or not or what.
Yes.
And it's that internal influence that then essentially it trickles down, and the influence always is, well, get it removed, get it repaired, get it remediated.
Yeah.
When, like you said, and that is the most important key thing, it's what's best for the client.
Yeah.
The end user, what's in line with what they want their recommendations to be, because they might have a policy of not doing anything with asbestos, but locking rooms off and leaving it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got that kind of the trickle down of always get it removed, then that creates that issue in itself, and the issues become bigger and larger than perhaps they actually are.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong, like an asbestos survey report is a recommendation. The company's providing that recommendation, but, you take advice from the perceived experts, don't you?
Yeah, definitely.
And if the perceived expert is giving that recommendation, then kind of you've got to have a reasoned or a stronger reason element to go against it, haven't you? If something was to go wrong, then that's probably the first thing that anyone investigating that would look, well, the report said remove. Why haven't you removed it?
Yeah.
Whereas it may not be the best practice to actually do that.
That's definitely it. When something's down in black and white, it's kind of a hard comeback and a hard argument to come back against it and say, well, no, I didn't do this because of X, when in black and white it says, no, remove it.
Yeah.
Another kind of worry for me as well, and I have heard of this going on. I mean, we've discovered this throughout our career, really, on a few different scenarios of we've gone to price works for a client and they've already had a cost in from a company that also surveyed it. Now, when we did the site visit with our contractors and we inspected the kind of recommendations, it came to light the removal sizes that were put down were completely inaccurate. And what I mean by that is we've gone to an area to have a look and see what we think on the removal and how much it's going to take and how long and all the rest of it. And I don't know, I can't even remember the example, but it said something silly like 1,000 square metres of asbestos insulating board to be removed. And we all carry laser measurers, our surveyors carry laser measurers. When we resized it, it was less than half of that size.
Yeah.
So anybody not carrying out that kind of survey, the pricing survey to that diligent level are always going to come in astronomically higher in cost.
Yeah. To give you an example, sometimes where you've had an asbestos survey report, generally you may send that report out to a number of asbestos contractors. Now, depending on the actual asbestos that's looking to be removed, the asbestos removal contractor may just go off what's identified in the report. So, for instance, it will look at the type of asbestos, the sizes, and give them base their quote on that information. Now, if they, like Ian said, they haven't visited site, they would never be able to confirm the actual quantities, the true quantities of that element.
No.
Now, which is all and good if you won the job and then you go and then it's a different size, that's a different issue. Whereas if you're just at the quoting stage, you're not going to get past because the person who did the survey knows the true sizes and give their accurate quote.
Yeah, you're not even going to get near it. You're not going to touch that quote in any way, shape or form because
contractor A who did the survey knows the true cost, whereas contractor B who hasn't been to site is given an elevated cost.
Definitely.
Yes, that is a tricky one. One thing that we haven't touched is obviously talking about these companies. Now, there's UCAS accredited companies that have asbestos removal companies or departments.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's obviously removal contractors that have surveying departments, which may not be UCAS or they could be UCAS. So the thing that UCAS kind of does look at this, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So if you're accredited for asbestos surveys, UCAS does look at your impartiality and whether the company can influence recommendations within that. It does actually look at that, doesn't it?
It does. And I mean, the problem with that still for me, it's the overlying issue of influence.
Yeah. Basically what it kind of looks for is there any direct individual doing surveys and involved within removal? And generally that's as far as it goes.
Yeah.
So for instance, is the asbestos removal contracts manager also sorting out asbestos surveys?
Exactly.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if there is that clear chart in the actual organisation, then UCAS starts to tick in the box. That's okay.
It is.
And they've got the policy in place.
Yeah.
That's okay. However,
that's it. It's all well and good having the written information down.
Yes.
But like I say, it's the stuff you can't see. It's the influence.
Yes.
It's
the person at the top of the tree or the individuals, the owners, the people who have the overriding influence can push that influence down through the companies or the company.
I can indeed. And this really is a concern for me because, like I say, I've seen a lot of things over the time. And as business gets harder under current climates and the way things are, it's kind of people are going to be doing this more and more and more because essentially that they need to self-generate their own work. And that is a real big worry for me.
Essentially, that is the reason why asbestos removal contractors undertake asbestos surveys. That's the key reason.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I found it. I've now given you a quote for what I really want to do because that's the expensive element, the asbestos removal. That's the expensive kind of part of it over asbestos surveys, isn't it?
Now, don't get me wrong. We're not throwing these stones at these companies because there are some good ones. What we're saying is there isn't, I don't believe, or we don't believe, there's 100% true impartiality.
No.
And that there's never an influence at all.
And that's it. And I mean, I've always been kind of taught and learn, and the way that I act is kind of to err on the side of caution and remove risk and remove elements of risk. Now, for me, having, like saying, two companies under one roof that you're using to do all elements of your work, that's a risk. And that's a risk that personally I wouldn't be willing to take because there is that underlying worry in that issue And like I say, I suppose it's, I don't know, easier for me to see because I've seen it time and again. And that is just that worry that it's going to get worse, really.
Yeah, definitely. As times and as the kind of the industry, the world economy is going to restrict slightly. There's definitely that always underlying possibility. And I think that's all we're saying, isn't it? There's that underlying possibility that the true impartiality of your asbestos survey is never going to be 100% if you're using a company that does both.
So that is just something to bear in mind. You should really grill the company and the people that you're working with there on this kind of subject if you are using people for both.
And don't be afraid to question recommendations as well.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. It's like, how have you come to that conclusion of that's the only option? And whether that be repair, whether that be removal, and say, look, actually, can we work together on coming up with a different solution?
Yeah. Is there another solution? Because a lot of the time there is.
And can you amend your report to say that?
Yeah.
Whatever you agree. Don't be afraid to ever sort of come back with that, because at the end of the day, like we said, it's when it's in black and white, it's hard to sort of counter the argument afterwards.
Definitely.
So always have that conversation with your asbestos consultant or your surveying company to sort of work together with the recommendations as well.
And that's it. We are asbestos consultants, and that's what we do. We consult. We consult with our clients. We consult on what their end goal is. Rather than just going off and putting down what we feel. We identify early on what the client's end goal is with their asbestos management. And again, that's kind of key, because if that's not happening, then you're going to get the recommendations that they feel is best.
Yeah.
Which aren't always best for you. Yeah. Hope you enjoyed that one. Remember, asbestos first, not last.